Welcome back to the Galley of the Sun. Today we're giving Mike a break, and let's be honest, we're giving all you a break from Mike today. And we're making things a little more serious. Serious as in serious barbecue. We're going for ribs. Now I'm gonna do ribs with 3 different cuts. We're gonna talk baby back, spare ribs, and St. Louis style. So baby back ribs, right here, are cut from the top of the back of the pig, sometimes called loin ribs. They're cut right from below the loin. They're meaty. They have a lot of meat on top of the bone. A lot of people like them. They're a little leaner than spare ribs because of where they come from. Like I said, the loin. So they're a little leaner throughout. Some people don't think they're as juicy as spare ribs. They're all pretty much the same. The next one is spare ribs. Nice big hunk of spare ribs here. These are lower, they're flatter. There's a lot of intermuscular fat in here, so very juicy, right? You get a lot of meat on a spare rib, but the whole spare rib is sometimes harder to handle because it is so large. You have not only the rib bones here, but you have this lower level piece here that has quite a bit of bone and cartilage in it. So a lot of people don't like that. Well, the people that don't like that but still like all that intermuscular fat for the moisture, they typically prefer St. Louis style ribs, right? Cut from the exact same spot as the spare ribs. They're just trimmed to this nice squared off cut that you see here. So these are probably my preferred ribs, but we're gonna do all 3 today. As we go through, I'll show you how to prep them, how to clean them. We'll go over what my go-to rub is. We'll make some sauce, we'll get them on the smoker, and we'll go from there. All right, let's talk about preparation. So all of these ribs were just purchased at my local grocery store. They come to me, they're packaged in plastic. Well, all I do is I take them out of the seal, I rinse them to get most of the juice off, I dry them with a paper towel, and then I'll trim them a little bit. Not too much to do on these St. Louis styles. At the ends, you're looking for, if there's a small bone, a little hard to see, but you see this little bone sticking out here. You don't want somebody to bite into that, possibly stick themselves in the mouth. That would hurt, so we'll trim that off. Other than that, these look good. Now we'll talk membrane. So on the back side of ribs, you have this real papery membrane. There are 3 thoughts about membranes. You could leave it on, you could take it completely off, or you can score it. So there's pros and cons to both sides, or all 3 methods. The first, take it off, which is my preferred method. It exposes the meat below it to smoke and the rub that you're going to put on it. To leave it on provides a little bit of heat barrier. If you have some hot spaces on your smoker or your grill, it provides a little bit of heat barrier for protection to that intermuscular meat. The third is to score it, provides a little bit of protection and allows a little bit of that smoke and rub to penetrate. If you know your smoker and you're rotating it periodically, which we'll talk about during the smoking process, you won't have a problem with removing the membrane, and you're gonna get more smoke and more flavor into the meat with your rub. These look good and trimmed. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the membrane, use a paper towel, come to the edge, get it started. We'll see how this goes. This is always a challenge. It can all come off in one. It can fight you for an hour. See, I'm cutting some meat away here. Don't get rid of that. You can put that into a grind for sausage. Cutting away some small pieces that would typically just burn. There we go, not too bad. Got the membrane off, exposed all that. You can see that beautiful meat there in between the bones. Get lots of good seasoning on that. Okay, for the seasoning today, going with a nice basic barbecue Midwest kind of flavor. This is my kind of go-to rub for ribs. I use a couple of commercial rubs that I purchased, one online and one from a store, and then I mix some other seasonings in with it. So with rubs, some of the things you need to think about: one, You don't want to go too high in a sugar content, so brown sugar and so forth, that can cause burning. Some people like to use just SPG, salt, pepper, garlic, or just salt and pepper. You can use your favorite rub that you enjoy. Here's a recipe for mine. So it starts with 2/3 of a cup of Our Butts Are Smoking Cherry Habanero. Don't let the name fool you. That habanero in there, it's not spicy at all. And we're also going to cut it. Next is an equal part of the McCormick's Grill Mate Sweet and Smoky. This has a really nice chipotle and some cinnamon in it. It's just a wonderful, wonderful flavor added to especially pork. Then I take 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, a tablespoon of granulated garlic, and 1 tablespoon of onion flake. Now I like to have these a little larger pieces, provides a little bit of texture on the meat as you go. There's not a whole lot into it, but that onion flavor really adds to the flavor of the meat. So give that a nice little mix here. And what you come up with is a really nice multi-size granule rub, which will provide a lot of texture, some great flavors that we've put into it. Okay, so I take this after I mix it, and you saw my empty Our Butts Are Smoking Cherry Habanero here that I get from allthingsbarbecue.com, and I'll take this and continue to use this as my applicator. All right, so the way that I do this, using kind of 2 foil pans here, I put the ribs in to apply the rub. That way the rub stays in the tray, and anything that's in the bottom of the tray, I can then get the edges of the ribs with that. So apply a nice, generous covering on each side. Put it on the first side, and then we'll let it sit for a minute and let it get to where the surface starts to look wet. That way we know we have a good adherence to the rub before we flip it over. Notice I'm using one hand, stay clean on the rub holder, rub container, and the other hand on the ribs. Okay, we'll go ahead and flip it over and get the other side. The bone side, well exposed with that membrane removed. Forget to get all those edges. All that exposed meat can get that flavor from the rub into, which is just going to be delicious. All right, so that was the baby backs. We'll start here on the St. Louis style. Good sized cuts of meats, big rack of spare ribs here. So while these are sitting and tacking up with the rub, let's talk about how we're gonna smoke them. So there's a few different methods out there for smoking ribs. There's what a lot of people call the 3-2-1 method. That's 3 hours smoking open, unwrapped at about 225 to 250. Then you wrap it, put it back on for 2 more hours with fluids. Some people use apple cider, butter, honey, right? Lots of different things. And then you pull them back out, unwrap them, sauce them, and put them back on for another hour. That typically gives you fall off the bone tender ribs. And if that's what you like and that's what you want, fantastic. That's a great way to do it. It'll tried and true method, it will turn out great. But that's not how we like ribs here at the Galley of the Sun. We like ribs that are very, very tender, but have a little bit of pull to them, meaning when you bite, it gives away from the bone, but you still have to bite through it. So it's got a nice little pull away from the meat. You'll leave a nice little bite mark, but it won't, all the meat won't completely come away from the bone. And that's how we're gonna do it today. So we're gonna cook them completely unwrapped on our smoker at 225 degrees using a combination of cherry and pecan pellets. Those 2 flavors tend to give a great color and flavor aspect to the ribs. All right, these are looking good. Let's go on out to the smoker. All right, we're out here at our outdoor kitchen. We're smoking today on our Yoder YS640. Again, I'm using a 50-50 mix of cherry and pecan pellets. A great flavor, great color. I am cooking with the diffuser plate in, and I'm going to be using the upper shelf today. You can see that rub is well adhered. Surfaces look wet. We're going to set these on. Now it looks like I'm going to have to put those spares on the bottom. So I know that that bottom shelf is going to get much warmer than the upper shelf. So I'll be rotating these periodically. The other thing I'll be doing is I'll be spritzing them starting at about the hour, hour and a half point. I'm using a mix of 50% water and 50% apple cider vinegar. No flavor to it, but it prevents burn areas. So it keeps the surface nice and moist. It'll extend the cook maybe a little bit. I'm expecting anywhere from a 3.5 to 5 hour smoke, left open the whole time. Okay, now that the ribs are on the smoker and we have some time, let's go ahead and make some sauce to go with this. It is a honey bourbon sauce. I start out using some Sweet Baby Ray's as a base because it's a fantastic Midwest style barbecue sauce, all around great flavors, and then we just enhance it. So we're gonna start out with 3 cups of Sweet Baby Ray's, 1/4 cup of honey, add a 1/2 cup of that barbecue rub that we just made. Give that a good mix. Start it blending, and then we're gonna thin it out with a 1/2 cup of bourbon. I'm using Clyde Mays today. I don't cook with anything that I wouldn't drink, whether you're making spaghetti sauce with red wine, sherry in different recipes, or bourbon in my barbecue sauce. The alcohol for this is gonna cook off because we're gonna simmer this for at least an hour on medium to low heat. We'll get it up to a simmer, and then we'll settle it down, cook off that alcohol, and let all those flavors meld together into just this fantastic barbecue sauce. I've made a lot of different barbecue sauce flavors in the past. I've used fruit and pureed it and added to it, making peach, raspberry, and Sweet Baby Ray's is typically what I start with as a base. So remember, we put that 1/2 cup of rub in here, and in that rub you have that cherry habanero, right? It's going to give a nice little kick to it, not too heavy. Don't worry about, like I said, that habanero, right? And that sweet and smoky that has the chipotle and cinnamon, and then we added the garlic and onion flake, and all of those flavors are going to just meld right in with that honey, give it a little more sweetness, and the bourbon, give it that nice smoky bourbon flavor at the end. So we're going to let this, now that it's mixed up, come together, come up to a simmer. We'll drop the flame a little bit and let it simmer for an hour, hour and a half until it's reduced maybe 10%. All right, it's been about an hour and a half now. We're going to give these ribs a spritz, rotate them a little bit on the smoker. As I said before, we got that big rack on the bottom. We're going to rotate that up to the top, move one of the smaller ones down to allow it to cook evenly throughout all 3 of them on the cook. So let's take a look at them. Oh yeah, those are looking great. See these wet parts here? That's the fat breaking down. We're going to give them a little spritz. As a reminder, this is 50% water and 50% apple cider vinegar. Moisten that top. I'll take another look in about an hour. All right, so we're about 3.5 hours into this cook, and the St. Louis style ribs are just about done, so which means it's time to sauce them. Well, how do you know when it's at that point? It's a good question. So here we go. You see here the meat's pulling back from those ribs, good 1/4 to 1/2 inch. And when you lift the ribs in the middle, the ends stay down, and you just start getting tears in the surface of the meat. It's nice and tacky, that fat's breaking down. Those are ready to be sauced, and about 30 minutes later pulled off. The others, not quite there yet, getting there. Now you could pull these off in another 10 minutes unsauced if you like dry ribs. Here at the Oasis, love sauced ribs. That's why we made the sauce earlier. We'll put a nice coat on here. We'll let it tack up. We'll pull it off and let it rest, and then we'll give them a taste. All right, we're about 4.5 hours in. All 3 racks are done now. You can see they just have this beautiful mahogany color. The sauce is tacked up real nice. You can see that the fat has completely rendered out of these ribs. It's just nice and soft and pushed through. Can't wait to cut into it, taste it, and share it with you guys. Here we go. Here's the baby backs. St. Louis style. There's one of those long spare ribs. So side by side, you can see beautiful smoke ring on all of them. Plenty of smoke penetration, right? Very, very juicy. All that intermuscular fat just completely rendered out. You can see they're not quite fall off the bone. However, when I bite in, that meat breaks away clean, free. It's got a wonderful smoke taste. As I said, that cherry habanero, there's no heat to it, but absolute fantastic flavor. Can't wait for you guys to try this on your own. Thanks for joining us. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. Let us know how we're doing, what you'd like to see. We'll see you next time on the Galley of the Sun.